I loved Season 3 of Moominvalley. In fact, I think it might be my favorite season of the show so far, and I've been dying to talk about it, but I don't have any friends who are into Moomins, and I think my family's getting sick to death of all my chatter. And since you guys seem to like it whenever I talk about Moomins on this channel, I figured I'd compile all my thoughts and feelings into a video. I'm going to go through each episode at a time, talk about them for a bit, and give them each a ranking out of 10. Then at the end, I'll average them all together to get the score for Season 3 as a whole. But first, I'll be going over some general opinions I have about the season as a whole, especially compared to Seasons 1 and 2. I'll be spoiling pretty much all of Season 3, so if you haven't seen it yet, please skip this video and come back to it once you have. The season in general. So Season 3 made a few big changes from the previous two seasons, particularly with the cast and the soundtrack. 3 major cast members were replaced this season. Teresa Gallagher took over for Kate Winslet and Katie Leung as Mrs. Fillyjonk and Tiki respectively, and of course, Jack Rowan replaced Taron Egerton as Moomintroll. And overall, I'm not too mad about it. I wasn't terribly attached to Kate or Katie, so I didn't care too much when they left the show. And I love Teresa Gallagher. I'm a big fan of The Amazing World of Gumball, and I also really enjoy her music, so I was happy to see her join the show, and I think she does a good job with each character. And to be honest, I was expecting to hate Jack Rowan as Moomintroll, but I actually like him a lot. I thought he wouldn't be able to live up to Taron's performance, but I actually think he does a better job. I just really enjoy the way he delivers his lines and brings his own flair to the character, and I honestly think his voice suits Moomintroll more than Taron's. So we lost a bit of star power, but the cast is still pretty strong. Now on to the music. I was pretty disappointed to find that Season 3 doesn't have an original soundtrack like Seasons 1 and 2 did. I loved Season 1's soundtrack, obviously, and while I didn't really care for Season 2's, I still liked the concept of bringing a bunch of artists together to compose music for the show. So for me, the presence of the songs in this season was very much missed. And to be honest, it makes me a little concerned about the future of the show. While the story and characters are still strong, stronger than ever, I'd argue, other aspects of the show seem to be losing a little bit of steam. We've lost 3 cast members, all of whom were pretty high profile, and now we've lost the songs as well. Why? Obviously it doesn't matter if the show has famous voice actors or not, but it seems like a bad sign. I don't mean to discredit the writers, animators, and actors who worked on this season, but it seems like there's not as much investment in the show as there was before, and that bodes ill. Of course, this is all just speculation on my part, but it seems to me like Moominvalley won't last long after this season. But I could be completely wrong. Let me know in the comments what you think. Anyhow, let's move on to the season proper, starting with Episode 1, Homecoming. Hi everyone, Snuffkin Tano here, the internet's busiest Moomin nerd, and it's time for a review of this new season of Moominvalley. Unfortunately, Season 3 starts on a bit of a dull note with Homecoming. The episode is a bit slow to start. It's mostly just the Moomins returning home to find the valley a complete mess, which is an interesting introduction to the season, but in my opinion, way too much time is spent on exposition in this episode. The conflict of the episode also feels a bit contrived to me. The episode starts off with the Moomin family discovering that Sniff has discovered a book full of life hacks and has been giving advice to creatures throughout the valley, earning him the title of Wise One. At first, the main storyline centers around trying to find out who wrote the book Sniff found, but that gets resolved fairly quickly, and suddenly the episode is actually about Moominmamma having to choose between complete freedom and law and order. I definitely appreciate the message the episode is trying to send about drawing unnecessary borders, but this second conflict just doesn't feel necessary at all. I honestly would just have wanted a Scooby-Doo style mystery where Moominmamma tries to find the author of the book. Maybe give Little Mai a B-plot where she helps the fisherman adjust to life in the valley, I don't know. Overall, while I didn't love this episode, it was still a pretty good start and sets up the season well enough. Feeling a strong 7 on this one. Transition! Episode 2, Moomintroll's Grand Adventure. I know a lot of people were excited when it was announced that Snork would feature in this season, but I honestly wasn't. I don't hate the character or anything, but I had always been pretty neutral towards Snork in the 90s anime, so I wasn't super hyped. But everything changed when I watched this episode. I love Snork. I would do anything for this beautiful little man. I also really like Moomintroll's characterization in this season as well. Season 3 continues the theme Season 1 setup of Moomin wanting to be an adventurer like his father. I actually didn't enjoy the storyline much in Season 1, but I also just really didn't like the floating theater stuff either, so maybe that's why. Either way, I think it's handled better here. The only thing I don't really care for about this episode is how its conflict just stems from Moomintroll's lies about his adventures being found out, which we've seen a million times. It's such an overused trope. I really would have wanted to see a different conflict, or maybe a subversion of the liar revealed trope. Speaking of subversions, I was super excited to see how the show would handle Moomin and Snuffkin's reunion, and this episode absolutely delivered. Seeing them finally embraced was so exciting and cathartic, especially to see Snuffkin being the one to initiate it, even if things didn't go exactly how I wanted. I know everyone and their mother has already said this, but I would have loved a reversal of their usual greeting, with Snuffkin going Moomintroll and then Moomin being like Snuffkin, and then Snuffkin has to be like all cool about it, just how Moomin used to be. I don't know if that made sense, but I feel like y'all know what I'm trying to say. Even if I didn't get the exact exchange I wanted, it was still a great scene from a pretty good episode. I'm giving Moomintroll's Grand Adventure an 8 out of 10. But, could I just get a little more Snork next time? Episode 3, Brisk and Breezy. I've never really liked Brisk. I didn't like him in the 90s anime, I didn't like him in Season 2, and I wasn't expecting to like him here. But he's actually not too bad. He was pretty funny. And I love, love, love the storyline about Little Mai thinking he's her father. I adore this version of Little Mai, so I was really invested in her journey to find her dad and her connection with Moominpapa. But as much as I love the idea of it, I have a few issues with the execution. I feel as though Little Mai was too quick to conclude that Mr. Brisk was, in fact, her father, and then after Mr. Brisk denies it, she just runs off with no further questions, which seems out of character to me. I also feel as though the issue was resolved too quickly. I think I would have liked a longer conversation between Little Mai and Moominpapa, but while I wanted a bit more, I still really enjoyed what they gave me. I'm going to give this one the same score as the last episode, an excellent 8 out of 10. Episode 4, Inventing Snork. More Snork! My prayers have been answered! And his very own episode, too. This episode had me hooked right from the very beginning with its depiction of sensory overload. I'm not autistic myself, so I don't want to speak too much on this issue, but I really like how Snork's autism, which is canon by the way, isn't portrayed as an issue or flaw in any way, and how Moomintroll is framed as wrong for not accepting Snork as he is, which is more than you can expect from more mainstream projects. See ya! Sorry, had something in my throat there. I also like how this theme of acceptance is mirrored in the B-plot, with Snork Maiden trying to give Mizabel a makeover. I haven't really touched on this before, but I love Snork Maiden's characterization in this series as well. I love how she's depicted as a confident, artistic young woman who invests in things like beauty and fashion to make her and everyone around her feel their best. In fact, I really only dislike her when she's around Moomintroll, but I'll get to that later. This episode was really good and one of my favorites of the season. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. Episode 5, The Stinky Caper. I'm gonna be honest, I was not expecting to like this episode. Similar to Brisk, I didn't really like Stinky in the 90s anime, but I absolutely love him here. The way he's animated is so erratic and expressive, and I love the way he talks, it's so funny. And I love a good heist, especially the way it's presented in this episode. The idea of staging a heist to return something rather than steal it is such a clever and wholesome idea that makes so much sense for the world of the Moomins. I really only have one small issue with this episode, and it's really kind of a nitpick. It's just that I love when heist movies do that thing where, like, a character narrates their plan and then we see that plan being acted out, you know, kind of set in motion, I guess. I am not explaining anything well today. Anyhow, if y'all understand what I mean, it's that thing. That's the thing that I wanted to happen. But I love the story and concept of this episode so much that I honestly can't complain. Point is, I love this episode and I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. Episode 6, Toffel's Tall Tales. After that last episode, I was living the life, dude. I was in good spirits, and I think that's part of what made this episode so disappointing. This is probably going to come up eventually, so I might as well get it out of the way here. I don't like Toffel this season. I really liked them in season 2, especially their relationship with Snuffkin, but they really get on my nerves here. And not to spoil my own video, but Toffel's tendency in this season to just straight up lie to keep their friends around is something I have a problem with in multiple episodes. Not only is it just a bad look for Toffel that they never really learn or grow from, it also sucks because we're back to the liar revealed trope, because that's all this episode is, and it's boring and also dumb. It was nice to see the growth though, I guess. This episode is pretty much entirely carried by Snork Maiden and Little Mai's B-plot about art and depression and whatnot. I always love seeing those two interact, and I thought the idea of Little Mai trying to lift Snork Maiden's spirits was really sweet. Other than that, Toffel's tall tales is really nothing to write home about. 7 out of 10, moving on. Episode 7, Winter Secrets. I'm happy to say this episode was better than the previous one, but not by too much. I will say I love Moominmamma, so it was nice for her to get the spotlight for a bit. I like how this episode highlights her more adventurous side, with her literally hiding a fugitive in her basement. It's also nice to see pretty much every major character in the series in the same place, just hanging out. But unfortunately, although I really like the idea behind this episode, it feels a little one-note and plain in its execution. I'm feeling a 7 on this one. Okay, this is probably the one y'all have been waiting for. Episode 8, Lonely Mountain. Guys, I wanted to give this one a 10 out of 10. I heard all the buzz around this episode, and I was really hoping it would live up to the hype. But before I go any further, I have a small disclaimer. I try not to get too involved with, shipping culture, but I do love the pairing of Moomintroll and Snuffkin, in this adaptation anyway. But I respect that some of you may not, and that is fine. So I'm going to try and take both perspectives into account when I talk about this episode. From a non-Snuffman perspective, I'll say the dialogue in this episode is really good. One line that stands out in particular is when Moomintroll tells Snuffkin that it's nice to be alone when you've chosen to be alone, but it kind of sucks when you haven't. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but it was a really good line. But I was a little confused by a line near the beginning when Little Mai called Moomintroll wet. I think she said he was wetter than a fish's flannel or something. Is that British slang that I don't know? Because why would he be wet? Speaking of Little Mai, I adore her B-plot with the sweet little squirrel, although to be honest I didn't really understand all that snow horse business. It was so sweet to see her bond with that little beast, and then become so dedicated to saving its life. I love that the season adds a more sensitive side to Little Mai. And of course, from a Snuffman perspective, this episode is incredible. We literally have what seems to be an interrupted romantic confession from Snuffkin, and what, you're just expecting me to not lose my goddamn marbles? I loved this episode. I haven't enjoyed an episode of Moominvalley this much since the spring tune. So you'd think that this episode has all the makings of a perfect 10, but I don't know, guys. There's just something about it that bothers me. So, I feel like I need to ask you guys, are we being queer-baited? Even if you aren't into the idea of Moomin and Snuffkin as a couple, we all see the implications, right? They're definitely leaving a little trail of breadcrumbs here on purpose. It's not just the crazy shippers reading too much into things. Everything about what we've seen so far would imply that the show is moving towards Moomintroll and Snuffkin becoming an official couple. But would it, though? Even with the implicit romance between them, which we all agree exists, Moomin and Snork Maiden are still the show's main couple. I honestly thought they were going to have them break up for good at the end of season 2, but that didn't happen. And it's not that I just want Snork Maiden out of the way so Moomin can get with Snuffkin. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's been clear from day one that Moomin and Snork Maiden are kind of terrible for each other. They're always arguing and making each other jealous. They're just super toxic for each other. I just think it would be really innovative and bold if the show chose to split up these two characters who frankly bring out the worst in each other, and to then form a relationship that's been implied for years now, if not decades. I understand wanting to stay true to the source material, but I honestly think rejecting the established, very toxic relationship between Moomin and Snork Maiden in favor of a healthy relationship between Moomin and Snuffkin would be a wonderful way to honor Tove Janssen's original body of work. I said it right that time, I think. And now that we live in a time where a show on the Disney Channel has a bisexual protagonist in a same-sex relationship, I really think the world is finally ready for Moominvalley to make that final push and make Snuffman explicitly canon. And that seems to be what they're doing, but I'm concerned about how much longer this is going to take. Don't get me wrong, I love a good slow burn, but like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm not sure how much time the show has to tell its story. And again, the fact that Moomin is canonically still dating Snork Maiden really gives me pause. I'm just worried that we're being baited into thinking something is going to happen when in reality it never was. I'm worried that they're giving us Freudian slips and longing glances to make us think this is all going somewhere when it just isn't. That being said, I eat that shit up 9 out of 10. Episode 9, Mrs. Fillyjonk's Last Hurrah. I've never really known how to feel about Mrs. Fillyjonk. I don't really like the way she's depicted in this series, especially when you compare her characterization with that of Snork's. While Snork's differences are accepted and celebrated by the Moomin family, Mrs. Fillyjonk is never given the same treatment for her disciplined, methodical tendencies. But I think that's mostly because Mrs. Fillyjonk considers herself to be above and better than the Moomins, while Snork never does. I don't know, maybe I'm just reading too much into things. Anyhow, that makes it sound like I didn't like this episode, which isn't true. I thought it was really good. Although the concept of the episode feels a bit familiar, maybe I've seen it in a Gumball episode or something, it inspires a lot of dark humor that I really enjoy. Speaking of humor, I'm really loving Sniff this season. He used to irritate me, but I honestly think he's really funny here. I love his subplot in this episode especially. My only issue with this episode is that the musical numbers seem to come a little out of nowhere because there aren't any other songs anywhere in the season. But I still really enjoyed this episode and it's still a solid 8 out of 10. Episode 10, Snuffkin and the Fairground. I think based on the title, I was expecting an episode similar to Snuffkin and the Park Keeper from Season 1, which is one of my favorite episodes in the show. And this episode mostly delivered. I love seeing the Woodies again, and I really liked the Hemulin who ran the fairground. He was so sweet. But I still don't like Toffel, guys. I hate the way this episode just recycles the same conflict from Toffel's Tall Tales, which you'll remember I didn't really care for the first time. I just feel as though their character could have been handled a lot better. But I did like the way Moomintroll and Snuffkin were handled in this episode. It's kind of nice to see them argue and bicker with each other. I love the way this season is balancing out their relationship. Rather than Moomintroll idolizing Snuffkin, which we saw in seasons 1 and 2 as well as the 90s anime, this series and this season in particular is starting to depict them as equals, which is really refreshing. And I think that's what bumps Snuffkin and the Fairground up to an 8 out of 10. Episode 11, Call of the Hatifnattens. Yeah, this one's not so good. It's just a little boring. I like Hatifnattens, and I did enjoy their episode in Season 1, but I don't think they're interesting enough to carry multiple episodes on their own. And as much as I like Little Mai, I don't really care for the fisherman, so I didn't love how much of the spotlight he got this episode. That's all I have to say, really. 6 out of 10. Episode 12, Moominmamma's Flying Dream. I really like how Moominmamma is getting more focused this season. I also like how they're starting to show more of her adventurous side, especially in this episode and in Winter Secrets. I think it's great that Moomintroll's sole motivation in this episode is just to make his mama happy, and it's nice to see him succeed. Overall, it's a really cute slice-of-life story that reminds me a lot of the 90s anime, but I feel as though it never really goes anywhere or accomplishes anything. 7 out of 10. Episode 13, Midsummer Magic. I think this episode serves as an excellent conclusion to the season. I love the trio of Moomin, Snuffkin, and Sniff, so I like that they were the focus of this episode. I also like the bits with Little My and Snork Maiden at the well. This episode has the same energy as that one episode of Gravity Falls where they go inside Mabel's bubble and it's like this magical place that gives them everything they want. Oh, shit, spoilers for Gravity Falls, I guess. Sorry. The show ended like 6 years ago, so I think you guys are going to be fine. Holy fuck, 6 years. I'm getting old. Anyway, Moomintroll's speech about Moominvalley at the end was pretty powerful, and I cannot stress enough how perfect the very last scene of the episode is. This is a really strong episode and finale, so I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. So, what's the score, Morning Glory? We have any Oasis fans out there? No? That's fine, I actually don't like them very much either. Anyway, let's crunch some numbers. When we average the scores for each episode together, we get a 7.8 out of 10. Honestly, that's kind of lower than I expected because I feel like I gave out a good number of 8s and 9s, so I'm going to round it up to an 8. The season as a whole gets an 8 out of 10. Personally, I think the best episode of Season 3 was Lonely Mountain with a 9 out of 10, and the worst was Call of the Hatifnattens with a 6 out of 10. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with these rankings. I was also considering making review videos on the previous 2 seasons, so let me know if that's something y'all would want to see. And here's the finished piece I was working on throughout the video, which you saw in the thumbnail. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you liked me, be sure to subscribe to my channel. If you want, you can even turn notifications on, so you'll be the first to know when I'm breaking into your house to return that painting I stole. Anyways, that's all from me. I gotta go. The weirdest thing just happened. Like, I was in the middle of recording this, and the sun is just, like, it is just, like, completely gone. Like, I'm looking out my window right now. It's the middle of the afternoon, and it's just not there. So, I guess I should probably go find it. Bye!